set?
Yep.
We rolling? Got my eraser. We need it. What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's live stream lecture number 374. Today is May the 15th, 2018, and I'm going to talk about some concepts in the Beato book, my book that I wrote, and you can buy on my website actually at 20% off right now, RB515, because today is the 15th. Is today the 15th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I just said that. But I'm going to teach some concepts that are in it and kind of explain how they work and how to use the book. So I just opened up a random page here, page 49. So I have a series of rules in this section. This is a part of the music theory part of the book that's in the front here, where it begins very simply, where it tells you about intervals and then chord scales and relationships of chords that are built on scales and things like that. But then it gets into a lot of rules on chord substitutions, things like that. This is the chapter that we're in here. So on page 49, I just opened it up and I looked at example 78. And 78, this is one of the many, many rules for chord substitution. It says any chord can be replaced by another chord from its family. So what does that mean? So here's a family here. I've got a chord progression, D minor 7 flat 5 to G7 flat 9 sharp 5 to C major 7. In the book it just says G7, but it can be G7 flat 9 sharp 5. I decided to change that a little bit. Now, I have a series of 3 substitute chords. Each of these chords substitutes for the chord above.
Rick,
Okay?
everybody says it's low volume. Let me just,
They can't hear me?
yeah. Can I get it out of this case?
Yeah. Aaron's gonna sort it out here with the volume.
Should help.
Is that better? I wonder if it's blocking the back mic. Can everybody hear me better now? Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit louder anyways. So each of these chords is from the same chord family, these substitutions, and I'll tell you which families they're from. How am I doing now? Can they hear it better?
Still the same.
Still the same. Okay, we'll bring it closer. What's that? Can you guys hear me better now?
Aaron is loud.
Aaron's loud because he's on the front of the phone. Well, we could turn it around, actually, Aaron. Just flip it around.
Oh, it's good now.
Is it good? Okay. Okay, so here are my 3 chords that I'm going to substitute. Okay, so for D minor 7 flat 5, I have F minor major 7. For G7 flat 9 sharp 5, I have B major 7 sharp 5. And for C major 7, I have E minor 7. Okay, when I say you can substitute chords from the same family, okay, so you have to pick out a chord scale that's going to work from these. And this is typically one of the ways that you can do chord substitutions. Okay, so it says here F melodic minor for this chord here. So if I do F melodic minor is the scale that this comes from and that this comes from. The mode would be F melodic minor here, and this would be Locrian natural 2. So this is a natural substitution. One of the other things that I look for is I try to find chord substitutions that are built off one of the notes of the chord. If you think of a D minor 7 flat 5 chord, it has notes D, F, A flat, C. Okay? 1, 3, flat 5, flat 7. Now, the third of the chord is F. That's where your minor major 7th comes in. This is the 1 chord in the key of F melodic minor, so that's why it's a great substitution for this. Here I have G7 flat 9 sharp 5. And I've used a B major 7 sharp 5. Well, I'm going to use the same principle. The principle is this. I'm going to figure out what chord scale I'm going to use with this, which is going to be A flat melodic minor. Well, or you could say G sharp melodic minor. So A flat melodic minor would make this altered dominant, be the 7th mode of melodic minor, of A flat melodic minor. And this would be the 3rd mode, Lydian augmented. So this is a substitute. So I'm going to go A flat melodic minor. And I've built this chord off the third of this. So this is the third chord in A flat melodic minor. It would theoretically be C flat, just as if you were doing G alter dominant. If you actually take an alter dominant scale, an alter dominant scale is actually 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. But we don't call it a flat 4, we call it a natural third. So this is why this is a great chord substitution. It's built on the third of this chord, and it's another chord from A flat melodic minor. It's the third chord in the key. This is the 7th chord in the key, okay? So that's where my substitution's coming from, okay? And then E minor 7, well, if I think of C Ionian, okay, and I look at the third of C, which is the note E, E minor 7 is the third chord in C Ionian, or in C major, okay, which is, if you take the notes of the chord, well actually, let me take the notes of the chord, so you get E, G, B, D. That's 1, 3, 5, 7 of E minor 7. Well, what is it in relation to C major 7? The third, 5th, 7, 9. It's basically a C major 9 with no roots. Okay, so that's how that substitution works, and that's why that rule works, all right?
Let's hear what it sounds like.
So this is what it sounds like. So instead of, hold on, this, can you guys see my guitar here? I'm going to hold it up like this. Can they see it, Aaron?
Yeah.
So instead of this, 2, 5, 1, I'm going to play this. I'm going to play, do F minor major 7. I'm going to play my F minor major 9. So that's going to be my substitute for that. 2, 5, 1. Okay? The little inversion there of the E minor, but so instead of 2, 5, 1, I did 2, 5, 1. Okay? So those 3 chords, you can actually use the arpeggios from them as well. F minor major 7. Right, there's that. Then I go B major 7. There's the arpeggio for that, which would be substitute for that. And then C major 7, I can play E minor 7 over that, okay? So that works for soloing, and it works for actual chord substitutions, okay? Let's pick another thing out of here. That's a guitar that is let me pull that back a little bit. I'm gonna actually go to the next one. I'm gonna go to exercise 79, or example 79. This is another chord substitution, and it has, is it working okay?
Yeah, let's actually flip it around.
Ah, there we go. Wow. Nice.
Technology.
Is that actually backwards though, Aaron?
No, it's good.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So example 79 in the book, once again, you can get it at RB, here's a discount code, 20% off, RB515, May 15th. It's good for 24 hours. Okay, so the next example is let's say you have this, F major 7, F sharp, diminished 7, G minor 7, C 7. So here's the rule. Diminished 7th chords that resolve to minor 7ths, 1/2 step above, can be replaced with a minor 2/5 from the key of the 2 chord. Okay, so here's your 2 chord here, right? So we've got 1, we have the 5/7 or diminished 7 of 2 to 2 to 5. Okay, so I can take the minor 2/5 of this chord, which is the 2 chord, and I can use it as a substitution. So I'm going to do A minor 7 flat 5 to D 7 flat 9. Okay, that's the substitution for this chord. if you have this, you can also substitute that. Well, why does that work? Now, there's also, there's 50, or what is it, 48 pages before this that kind of explain these things already, and I'm jumping in as I always do anyways. But why does this work here? What is the relationship between this and these two chords? Well, if you take a D7 flat 9 and you spell it, D, F sharp, A, C, and then E flat, we have 1, 3, 5, flat 7, flat 9. Well, if I take F, A, C, E flat, what do I have? I have F sharp diminished 7, okay? So this is the upper part of a dominant 7 flat 9 chord, this F sharp diminished 7th chord. That's why this works as a sub for this, and that's why if you had this, you could simply play this, okay? So if you had a progression like this, okay, that you can sub, okay, so this F sharp diminished 7th chord is the same as, and here's a 2 before it. If I look at this chord and I go like this, and I go here, this is F sharp diminished 7 right here, right as part of the chord. Okay? So that is rule number 27. Okay, there's a lot of rules in the book for all different types of things, for chord substitutions. We're in the chord substitution section, so that's that example there. Now, let's say I just open up to another page here. I'll go way in the back of the book. Okay, well, I just opened to diminished 7th chords here. So I have my book. I actually printed out a copy of it. It's right here. I printed out my copy. Now, when you buy it, you're actually buying the PDF, but you're welcome to print it out. And it just makes it very handy, all 467 pages of it. So this is diminished 7th lines, funny enough. Okay, so let me play one here. Okay, so example 200, K. So this is, let's see if I can read it here. This is over an A flat, 7 flat 9. And it goes like this. Okay, so it starts here, and I'm using this position. I have a little bit of a buzz here on this string. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm playing fourths in a diminished, dominant diminished scale. So here's the scale here. If I think in this position, so I've got my A flat here, and I'm using the top part of the from the D string up, and I'm going. Okay, so I've got E, F sharp. I'm using fourths. Okay, now, well, what can you do with that? Well, the nice thing about diminished 7th chords with any of these examples is that these can be transposed. They can be transposed by moving up 4 frets, more 4 frets, 4 frets. And you're still using the same sequence of notes. So if I play, and I moved it up. So those notes, I used the same shape, and I moved it up 4 frets to here, using all the same series of notes, okay? It works because of this. If you think about it here, let's say I take a diminished, or let's say I take a dominant 7th chord like this, like A flat 7. If you take any note from this shape, from any dominant shape, and move a note, let's say I add any note a half step above, right, or below any of these chord tones, I will create a diminished 7th chord, right? So this is an A flat 7 chord with the 7th in the bass, and I put an A in there, and this became an F sharp diminished 7th chord. Well, if I take this diminished 7th chord, I move this note down a half step, then I get a D7 chord. Okay, so here I moved up one note, one half step, and I went from an A flat 7 to an F sharp diminished chord. Here I went F sharp diminished to D7. Okay, if I go back to F sharp diminished and I move this note down half step, I just created a, does anybody know what chord that is? B7. Okay, so all the chords are going to be related by minor thirds. So I just created a B7 chord there. And if I'm here and I move this note back half step, I've created an F7. So F7, B7, D7, A7. All those chords are a minor third apart, all those dominant chords, and they're all related to this one diminished shape here. That's why these things to play with my guitar propped up like this. It's very awkward, but so this line actually doesn't just work on A flat 7 flat 9. It actually works on B7 flat 9, it works on D7 flat 9, and it works on F7 flat 9. Anything that are minor thirds apart, that line will work on. Okay, so it's taking these ideas and getting as much mileage out of them. This is something that Wes Montgomery was incredibly good at. He would take maybe 25 different chord shapes, but he'd be able to substitute them in many different ways. And I talk about this in the book a lot too, about this will work on any instrument. My book is for any instrument because the notation and the concepts really work for anything. If Wes had a chord like this, okay, you could look at it and say, let's say it's either part of a D7 or D9 chord, but it's really an F sharp minor 7 flat 5, okay? Well, this can also be part of an A flat dominant 7 sharp 5 flat 9. You see that shape is right there. If I just move the root around, it can also be part of a minor 6, an A minor 6 chord. So you've got F sharp minor 7 flat 5, you have A flat altered dominant 7 sharp 5 flat 9, you have A minor 6, and you have an F sharp minor 7 flat 5. So any of the inversions of that chord will, if I go there, any of those inversions will be substitutes for any of these other chords. If I want to play a D9, I can play it here, I can play here, I can play here, I can play here. Those are all, if I put a D in the bass, those are all D9 chords. If I want to play A flat altered, I can go here. Cool sound there. I can go here. I can go here. I can go here. I can actually put it right in the chord there. Okay, that gives me the sharp 5 and the flat 9. So all these are movable. Any of these chords you're able to recycle in many different ways. And Wes was a real master at doing this. So this will go, if you're playing piano voicings on guitar, it doesn't matter. These things are all going to be these substitutions. F sharp minor 7 flat 5 is the same chord as D9, is the same chord as A minor 6, is the same chord as A flat 7 sharp 5 flat 9. They're all related because they all have the same notes in them. Any questions? Let's start taking some questions. What do you think, Aaron?
Somebody asked, so B major 7
Sharp 5?
5 equals D flat 7 sharp 11 equals G7 sharp 9 flat 13 equals F minor 7 flat 5 sharp 9 equals B flat sus flat 9.
Any chord that's in A flat melodic minor will work as a substitute over a G7 altered. So this chord here, right? I got G7 sharp 5 or sharp 5 with a flat 9 on top. So if I take A flat melodic minor, so A flat minor major 7, and then I go, what's the next note in there? B flat, Dorian flat 2. I'm fretting out a little bit. B major 7 sharp 5 is the next chord, and you can go through the entire scale, like you said with a D flat 7 flat 5, or that's a substitute. Well, it's D flat 7, right? Is a tritone sub. That's why it works. E flat's dominant, right? Is a sub for it. Those are all subs. But I like to take the substitutes off chord tones, off the root, off the third, off the sharp 5th, off the flat 7. So my flat 7 chord would be a minor 7 flat 5. So I use F minor 7 flat 5 as a substitute. That's how that works. So if I'm going 2, 5, 1, okay? Okay, so there you go. So I used it there. I used F minor 7 flat 5 as a sub for G altered. You can, same thing if you want to play the arpeggios, right? So if I got this. So I'd play D minor 7 flat 5. Right? Then E minor 7. Make sense? Next question.
We're getting some questions about, somebody asked about some non-diatonic substitutions for a major 7 chord.
Non-diatonic substitutions for major 7th chords.
I mean, it's kind of out of context. We don't know if it's a 1 or a 4 or whatever he's talking about, but...
Okay, so non-diatonic. So non-diatonic would be something like substituting a dominant chord, dominant 1 chord for the 1. So let's say you're doing a simple 2-5-1. Let's say you do it in B flat major. I'll do an A major. So B minor 7, then E7 or E9 to A flat major 7. Well, here I'm going to go B minor 7, E flat 7 to A flat to A13, or it's not E flat 7. B minor 7, E9 to A13. Now I've substituted a dominant for the tonic here. Okay, so that's a non-diatonic. That would really be the 5 of 4, right? So I put a 5 of 4 as the tonic chord, but I just call it a 1 dominant chord. That would be a non-diatonic. You could say theoretically that 2, 5, 1, if I did Lydian augmented on the 1 chord, that would be a non-diatonic because it's not diatonic to the key of A major. This chord is really from F sharp melodic minor. So we've actually changed keys there, so that would be a non-diatonic. There's many ways that you can do non-diatonic, tonic chords, because any one from that key, for example, if I did F sharp melodic minor, I could use an F minor major 7, or F sharp minor major 7. So I could go 2, 5, 1. Ooh, that's sweet. I could make my 2 chord. I could go 2 with a flat 6. 2, 5, 1. That's kind of nice. Or 2, 5, 1. Oh, that's sweet. Man, that's good. I like that. Never played it before. There's a so there's your minor 7 flat 6 or minor flat 6, 2 to a 5. I took my E, instead of E altered, I did an E Phrygian chord, okay? So I've got the F major triad over E, all right? So 5, and then my 1 chord is F sharp minor major 7. Remember I said that's substituting for the A major 7 sharp 5. So this is the I got terrible buzz here. Sorry about that. It's sitting up like this for some reason. It's making it buzz bad. So I did a where I substituted. This would be modal substitutions, really. So 2, 5, 1. 1. Sorry, let me do it again. 2, 5, 1. It's a beautiful sound. Really cool. My 2 chord could be a Dorian chord, right? I could go 2, then I could do my 5 chord, let's say 5, and do my 1 chord as a dominant chord. So I go, what did I just do? 2, 5, 1. That's kind of boring though, I don't like that. Because the other two have so much tension. 2, 5, and then let's say I go 1, like, 1. So that would be, instead of that, I'm doing would be a Phrygian chord off the flat third. Then you're getting into modes of the double harmonic major, harmonic minor, things like that. They give you more interesting kind of chord substitutions. These kind of things will work. These don't just work for jazz. This is stuff that work if you're a composer and you're writing with strings or something, and you have a linear idea. You can use these types of substitutions where you're thinking, okay, I don't want to do just the regular standard kind of thing. I want to go someplace different that I haven't heard before. And these are when you get these non-diatonic or modal substitutions here. This is modal mixture where I'm substituting instead of my 1 chord would be a Dorian chord to Mixolydian to Ionian, right? But really I'm going Dorian, and then there's my a modal substitute from the E alter dominant scale. I used F minor major 7, right? So there's 2, 5, 1. And I used a or 1 could be this. Here it is, listen. 2, what did I do here? I forgot. 2, 5, 1. That's super modern there. Dorian to alter dominant, but substituting the melodic minor parent tonic chord to a 1 dominant altered. So I've got flat 9, flat 5, sharp 5. I'm really doing B sus4 over A, so that would be. That's a really super modern substitution there that you would play. That would be. That's kind of Alan Holdsworth type sound there. Beautiful, beautiful sound. That's a great tonic sound. So if I did my 2 chord, 2, then my 5 chord, then my 1 chord. Oof, that is sweet. Whoa! I love that. That is nice. So anyways, that's actually a great question about using a non-diatonic, what was it? Non-diatonic tonic chord.
Right.
Yeah. Next one.
Somebody asked if, aside from the modal triads you've laid out, Phrygian triads, Locrian triads, are there any triads that maybe don't involve stacked thirds in any of the other modes that are unique to those modes?
Yes, yeah, because there are some triads that are not in the modes of the major and melodic minor that you'll start finding in the double harmonic major and the harmonic major scale. Anything where you have some odd intervals. So you can get chords like this where it's 1, flat 2, flat 5. Okay, that might be 1. Okay, that would be or combinations of 1, 3, flat 5 that are really a bit odd, but you would call it a triad. And it's still built, these aren't necessarily built in thirds, because if you think about it, if we take all the triads that we have 1, 3, 5, which is major, 1, flat 3, 5 is minor, 1, 3, sharp 5 is augmented, 1, flat 3, flat 5 is diminished. All right, then you start getting, those are the major, minor, augmented, diminished. Then we start getting into the other ones like 1, sharp 4, 5. These are all the suspension types. This is your Lydian. 1, 4, 5, which is your sus 4. Then you've got 1, 2, 5, which is your sus 2. Then you have 1, flat 2, 5. Whoops, sorry. Flat 2, 5, which is your Phrygian. Then you have 1, 4, flat 5. You have 1, flat 2, flat 5. This is Locrian. This would be a sus 4, flat 5. I don't have room to write over there. This is a Locrian triad here. I'll write it here. Locrian. This is the sus 4, flat 5 triad. Okay. I call them triads because they're 3 notes, but they're not built in thirds. These ones are not built in thirds. Okay. These are different types of suspensions, but these are really commonly used. You can also use the ones that I talked about. 1, 3, flat 5. Okay, these are things that occur in some of the other scales, right? So yes, there are things that are not built on thirds that I consider triads, and I use a lot. And I just played that last voicing I played here was this voicing here for an A dominant chord. I used a B flat suspended 4 over A because B flat sus 4 is one of the triads that those notes are all in A altered dominant. You've got the flat 9, flat 5, and sharp 5. So that's one of the triads that appears in the B flat melodic minor scale. Okay? That's why it works as a substitute for A altered. But instead of playing this chord, which is boring and you've heard 3 million times, just forget about that chord. Take it out of your vocabulary. Put that chord in there. Put that chord in there, right? Put this chord in there. Put that chord in there. Those are way, way cooler as your altered sounds, right? I love those sounds. It's really, really has a modern feel to it. Sounds like 2018 to me. What else?
Rick, how basic does the Beato book go into theory?
The Beato book starts out with how to name intervals. It starts out right at the beginning. Literally in the beginning, the first pages, other than, it starts out here. Theory and harmony, intervals, and it talks about how to name intervals, what symbols to use, all basics here. So it really, really begins with that, with key signatures, with naming intervals, how to build chords, how to build chord scales. When I wrote the book, I needed, there was nothing that was out at the time that addressed any of these things. There's still, you don't find Lydian triads, people talking about things like that typically. I've never read them, especially when I wrote the book 30 years ago, people didn't talk about it. So I needed something to teach the concepts that I wanted to teach that wasn't available anywhere, which led me down that road, because I was constantly just writing things by hand because there were just no books I could get. What could you buy at the time? Mel Bay books, Joe Pass Guitar Style was out back in the 70s, or back in the 80s, and this is really pre-tab, all this kind of stuff when I was looking for materials to use when I was a college professor. So this was my textbook that I wrote, and now I've updated it completely with 2018 ideas. I've added 160 pages to the book, and I rewrote basically all the examples. So if any of you that have bought my first version of the book that's handwritten, you need to upgrade to this. Just write to me on my rickbeato1 at Gmail, and I will send you the link for it because it's far, far better than it was. And it's something that all of you need to have. So, by the way, for any of you that do have this, I put my courses on sale that are on my website in the Beato Academy of Music. I have 2 courses, Advanced Harmonic Concepts and Mastering Modes on the Major Scale, 40% off, same code, RB51515. Other questions, Aaron?
Charles is asking about your favorite rootless voicings.
My favorite rootless voicings. Well, I don't like to think of anything as my favorite. That's kind of narrowing me down, like what is my favorite song. I have a lot of them, and it changes depending on the day. But if I were to say probably the Rolling Stone, Angie by the Rolling Stones. Oh, wait a minute. No, just kidding. Stairway to Heaven, no. Favorite rootless voicings. I see you there, Charles. How are you? I don't have any favorite rootless voicings. You got to know them all. That's really the key. Oh, no. Oh, no. Come over here, baby. Come here. We have a visitor. I'm on live. Come here, baby.
Why?
Come here.
Why?
Come here. I'm on live. Come over and say hi. You say hi to everyone? Oh,
Hi.
this is Layla. What's up? You have any questions for Layla? Layla's here to answer questions. How are you, baby?
Good.
You good? Will you go back up? My girl. Okay. I'll be up in a bit. Anyways, do you have gymnastics?
Does Layla like her song?
Yeah, she loves her song. And I found out the funny story about that is I was playing it in the car before she was born. I told the kids when we decided on Layla, I said, there's a song, and I played it, and I'm thinking, yeah. And I said, it's in D minor, and Dylan's in the very back of the car, and he goes, actually, no, it's kind of in E flat minor. I said, what? No, it's in D minor, Dylan. He goes, no, it's out of tune. And then I came home and I read the story about how, and I listened to it, and he was right. And I read the story about how they had the ending that they put on a few weeks later that was in a different key, and they sped up the front half, slowed down the back half, and so it's actually not in D minor, except when Eric plays it unplugged, which I don't like. So there you go. She loves her song. Anything else?
What should the bass do for a harmonic triadic superimposition? I think that's what he was trying to say. I guess, or a different way of asking that is, what does the bass player do when you do all these substitutions and stuff?
Well, the bass player, it really depends, because these substitutions will work if you're playing, depending on what register of the guitar you're playing in. Typically, if you play any of these substitutions above the 5th fret with a root above the 5th fret on the A string, so above the note D and up, these substitutions will sound more like rootless voicings and will work fine. After you get below D, it starts to get muddy, and it can clash with the bass, except, remember what I said with my rule that you want to use a note from the chord? That is the reason. If you use a chord tone, if I have a G7 altered and I play a B major 7 sharp 5 chord, it's not going to sound dissonant with the bass note. It's going to sound great. You're going to have that low B, and you're going to have it could be a 10th interval depending on where your bass player is playing, but you're going to have the root note of the chord, the root or the bass note of your substitution is going to blend perfectly. If I'm playing a G in the bass and I play that B major 7 sharp 5 right here, let's say, play G in the bass, but it'd be an octave lower than that, it's going to sound beautiful. All right, so that's one of the things why when you're putting these substitutions in, and you're playing with a rhythm section, use chord tones for your substitution. So, B major 7 sharp 5, substitution off that. You can do a substitution off the sharp 5, which would be E flat, or you can do a substitution off F minor 7 flat 5. That's why these are good substitutions, because they're on chord tones. You can do one off the flat 5 too, obviously, which would be tritone sub. Go ahead.
All right, so another question. Some people say they're beginners, and some just want to learn guitar, but others are wondering, how do you start out? How do you get into jazz guitar, for example? All this stuff that's super advanced that we're talking about. Where do you start?
I honestly started personally, I started by listening to songs that were like Kid Charlemagne, for example. That's Steely Dan. That came out right when I started playing guitar, the year I started playing. Larry Carlton solo, and it has lines like this in it that are, and on a B flat 7 you go. He plays that on a B flat 13 chord, and when I heard that, I said, "Whoa, what is that?" And then somebody said, "That's jazz." I said, "Jazz?" That's actually not true. My dad played jazz all the time. When I heard that, though, I said, "Man, that sounds like stuff that I heard my dad playing on his records with Joe Pass or Oscar Peterson or whatever." And then I heard it with a distorted guitar tone, and it sounded amazing. I heard that. I heard, guys like Carlos Rios play on Brother to Brother. Plays this incredible solo. He's playing altered licks with the chromatic notes, and I would figure them out. And then that started leading me down the path to jazz. There were other songs, like in the first Steely Dan record, there's a tune, Do It Again, Bodhisattva was another Steely Dan tune. So I would hear stuff on the radio that would have, or Peter Frampton, for example, that would be using the Dorian mode and having passing tones and chromatic notes and things like that. Or Chicago, 25 or 6/4, Terry Kath solo in there. So those things are what kind of led me personally down the path. I wanted to start adding these notes. I wasn't satisfied with just playing a blues scale or pentatonic scale over a chord progression. I was like, well, that doesn't really sound like the chords. So I wanted to add notes. So then I started learning, well, what are the notes in the chord? Oh, if I have a D7 chord and I'm playing, if I'm in, if I'm playing, and I'm playing, but then it goes, I can play, or I can play, I can use the F sharp. Ooh, that sounds even better. So I was like, what is that note? Well, that note is the third of the D7 chord, and that's not in the. I said, oh, that's a C sharp there. That sounds kind of cool on that, So it's like when I'd be playing blues, or I'd hear Hendrix play on Hey Joe, or I'd hear, you start hearing these notes where guys are playing on dominant chords and they add the third in there, B.B. King. And you say, wow, that sounds really cool. Why is he doing that? Where's that from? That's kind of what led me down. Then I just progressed on. Well, I want to hear more. Ooh, I like more dissonance. Then I heard Alan Holdsworth, because all this stuff was coming on. He played on a record, The Enigmatic Ocean with Jean-Luc Ponty. He played on the first UK record, which came out in 1976, 7, I don't know, something like that. And honestly, even people like Peter Gabriel and Genesis that had different kind of chords that were polychords, really. And you start hearing that harmony and you say, where is that from? I want to know that. That's what led me down into getting, and it's just progressing from there. It's like, okay, you get bored with the sound, then you add more sounds to your vocabulary, and you keep doing it.
Somebody asking about constant structure as a theoretical concept. He said he can't wrap his mind around it. He finds it a lot in lounge music, and I know what he's talking about. It's when you go like minor 11s that just keep moving up, or moving minor thirds, and I guess he doesn't really understand the theory behind that.
You're talking about constant structures like that?
Stuff like that, yeah, that doesn't really have a tonal relation. Yeah.
Well, constant structures, the thing about constant structures is that we call that, constant structures can be called planing if you take the same voicing and move it around. chromatically or however it moves in the scale. But I don't necessarily use a lot of constant structures unless I'm using some type of half step. If I do, if I'm doing a big band arrangement or something, I'm doing and use these structures that are half step that are those would be kind of constant structures that I would use as upper neighbors or lower neighbors for interest, but I'm not going to necessarily. Well, maybe I would. So I'm playing, I could play. I'm playing A minor pentatonic, but in fourths. This is kind of cool, Sonny. Those would be constant structures in a pentatonic scale. You can use it. Doesn't necessarily sound great. I don't know about the lounge aspect of it, but you can do anything if you do it in time with a great feel.
And if it sounds good.
If it sounds good. If it sounds good, it is good.
So we have a 17-year-old jazz pianist from Italy, and he's asking how to get from more basic harmonic concepts to more advanced ones. That's what he's trying to do right now.
Buy my book. Buy my book and work through it. Go through the chord substitution section. Don't forget, chords are lines, lines are chords. They're all related. Even practice things. Take away chords. Just like practice voice leading. Let's say I take a simple chord like this. A simple C major 7th chord. And I'm going to move one note at a time and see if I can use voice leading. I'm going to go, maybe I'll go there, go there, 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 or there. So I'm trying to use all half step motion to voice lead these chords. So that's a good place to start. You don't even need to start necessarily with, okay, well, what I'm going to do, all the stuff I was doing, like 2, 5, 1, like that. You don't have to get into that stuff right off the bat. Try and take the chords that you're playing, your basic 2, 5, 1s, and then voice lead between them. Maybe use some chromatic notes and see what works. See if you can find some hip sounds that way. Just to get your ear used to listening for the movement of voices, because that's really, really important. That's probably the most important thing, are how the voices move. That's why on the guitar, especially, because guitar is so position oriented, 2, 5, 1, or 2, 5, 1, right? Or 2, 5, 1. Lydian 1. So I'm trying to stay in these areas so all the voices move really smoothly. 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1. I got a little bit more modern there, right? Then I go here. 2, 5, 1. More classical, exactly.
Can you define modal playing in one sentence or maybe two?
I can define it in one word. Impressions. John Coltrane. Listen to Coltrane. Impressions is based on the tune So What by Miles Davis. Modal playing is when you play, when you're playing a particular mode over a particular progression. If you're playing So What or Impressions, you're playing a D Dorian. So if I got D Dorian, I have these are D Dorian chords. These are all, so all those chords, they happen to be fourth-based voicings that you would hear, that you heard McCoy Tyner play. based on fourths. And then just playing in that scale over it. That's modal playing, basically. Just playing over a modal chord progression. Playing one key.
A fan from the Netherlands asks, what makes the Beato book better than any other music theory book?
Because it's the best book ever written. It's like the, what is it? Tenacious D? It's the, what is it, of the greatest song ever written? It's the, somebody knows what that is. I just was watching that video the other day. It's like one of my favorite videos ever. It's because it has everything in it that you'd ever need to know pretty much. And you can use it for the next 30 years and keep learning out of it.
Pick of Destiny. Any thoughts on triad pairs?
Triad pairs. Triad pairs are when you take a scale and you find a grouping of triads. It could be, you know, a pair of triads. Let's say I've got a C7 chord. Okay, so and I want to play out of a mixed Lydian sharp 11 or mixed Lydian flat 7. That's Lydian flat 7 scale or mixed Lydian sharp 11. Well, I've got two triads in there. I have C major and D major. Okay, that would be triad pairs. I get C major. That's a triad pair, right? So those are triad pairs. I'm basically just using two different triads. C major, D major, C major, D major, C major, D major, C major, D major, C major, D major. You don't have to do them, you can do them in, you know, grouping. So I'm using D major. Okay, that would be a triad pair. Two triads that come from the same scale, in that case, that are a whole step apart. But a triad pair, usually when people talk about triad pairs, they're talking about triads that are a step apart, things like that. But they don't have to be. They can be, you know, two minor seventh chords a whole step apart, for example. If you're out of the, you know, it could be out of the melodic minor scale or something. Any place that you have two minor 7 flat 5 chords. If I played, let's say I played a G7 alter here, and I play a G minor 7 flat 5. This wouldn't be a triad pair. This would be a dominant 7th or a minor 7 flat 5 pair. So I'm doing F minor 7 flat 5 to G minor 7 flat 5. But it's really. Those would be minor 7 flat 5 pairs. Any pairs, they're usually step apart that are the same structure you can play with like that. That's actually a cool thing there. It's kind of awkward to play with my guitar like this. I feel like, I don't know who plays a guitar like that. It's actually easy to play. I should learn to play like that. Yes?
Should chromatic passing chords be the same quality as in major or minor as the chord it is going to?
It's a good question. That's a great question. In bebop, in jazz, you'll see this is happening. You know, you'll see this in big band arranging all the time. It's been going on, you know, since the beginning of big bands, Duke Ellington. You know, where you'll have. It sounds cool to have a chromatic instead of you can do two things. I can go If I'm gonna go from A minor to D7, I go, okay, I did E flat 7 to D7, so I used it. That would really be a chromatic passing chord because it's the same chord shape. Or if I'm on A minor 7, I go. Those are all chromatic passing chords because it's the same shape. B flat minor 7 to, or minor 9 to A minor 9. B flat minor 11 to A minor 11, or right? It can be either. You can do it as, you can put a chromatic dominant chord, meaning a half step above tritone substitute, or you just use the same structure a half step above. On guitar, it's easy to do. On other instruments like the piano, it's a little bit harder to do because obviously the chord shapes are different than they are on the guitar. On the guitar, it's the same shape just moved around, so it's a lot easier to do. Did that answer that?
Yep. He said he's always wondered this, and now he knows. Joel is asking, any tips for studying? Simple ways to engrave the information, or is it just repeat?
I thought about going on and doing my morning workout online, maybe on my Rick Beato live channel, doing an hour-long practice session where you guys join along with me and I'll show you how to practice, and do it every day for 2 weeks or something. Do an hour-long warm-up. We'll do a warm-up and practice. We'll practice scales, arpeggios, practice playing over chord progressions, practice, transcriptions of solos or worked out solos, and go through a series of how I would practice over the course of 2 weeks.
They love it.
So it'd be a morning workout or something like that. It could be a nighttime workout too, depending, whatever people think is good. Morning or night? Where is everybody from? I don't know.
Should we do a poll?
Do a poll. But if I got on and practiced, and I'd say, okay, here we are. I could say, okay, we're gonna practice we're gonna start out by practicing all the modes of G major, G Ionian, A Dorian, B Phrygian, C Lydian. But I'm not gonna play it like that. I'm gonna go. We'll play with a metronome. A Dorian. Then we'll do in scales in seconds. Scales in thirds. Scales in fourths. So on and so forth. So those would be, we go through all the intervals. We'll take maybe one scale and do that. Then we'll go through and do our arpeggios off one root. Maybe we'll do G major 7, right? G dominant. G minor 7. G minor 7 flat 5. G diminished 7. So on and so forth. It's weird for me to play with my guitar like this anyway, so. And then that could be a practice routine that goes on for an hour. And we can practice stuff right out of the book. And we'll increase metronome markings every day. We'll do new keys. We'll do new scales. One day it might be all major scales through all the modes with all the interval combination. Next day is going to be all melodic minors through all the modes with all the interval combinations. Next day is going to be harmonic minor. Next day is going to be harmonic major. Next day is going to be double harmonic major. We'll start with slow tempos. We'll practice them. We'll learn them. We play them on the keyboard, whatever we'll do, but and go through a typical practice regimen.
So far, 71% say night and 29% say morning.
Okay, I like nighttime. Nighttime's good. But I think that would be really instructive. And then we'll keep a journal on what we practice. And what I'll probably do is have it already worked out and maybe put the things on my website ahead of time, or on the Beato forum, forum, Beato Music Forum, what our practice regimen is going to be so that everybody can kind of stay current. You're going to have to know, okay, we're going to be in the key of G for this week, and we're going to do G modes of G major, then the second day is modes of G melodic minor, modes of G harmonic minor, modes of G harmonic major, modes of G double harmonic major. We'll do that. And then, and maybe we'll throw in an auxiliary scale every day too. The dominant diminished scale and the augmented scale, the blues scale, minor pentatonic, whatever. I'll have to figure it out, and we'll figure out a time to start. But that was one of the ideas I had this morning, actually, when I was going to get coffee.
Joe Jeffrey says, great idea. You should charge for this with a Beato Club monthly membership.
My man Joe, yeah, love it. That's a great idea. Man, let me get my guitar set up first. I'm not buzzing all over the place. I love it. I thought about this, about practicing though, and teaching people how to practice. It's really important because if you're going to practice things that I practice, I'm going to show you kind of how I practice, but thinking about how I practiced 30 years ago, really, and go through that. But we'd be advancing really fast. It's like a boot camp, 2-week boot camp. Maybe I'll do 2 hours a day or something. Oh, yeah. Love it.
Everyone's mad at Joe.
Come on, it'll be like $2 or something, right? $4.99.
What's your advice for nerves and live playing?
Nerves are good. I got asked this the other day, actually, about what do I think about how to get over nerves. I think nerves are good. Most of the greatest musicians ever had really big problems with nerves. Almost every player that I know that's great gets nervous. I don't get nervous, but I don't play any gigs ever, so that's probably. But I'm here, right? I'm here. This is a live gig. I guess I am gigging right now. If you know what you're, you know, you always need to think like, well, I can play better than anybody in the audience. Even if it's not true, you got to think that. Convince yourself. Anything else? I see a lot of comments on here.
Yeah.
Man. Can you read all those, Aaron?
Yeah.
That's fast typists. Beato book, discount, RB515. It's only going to work if you have the Beato book because we'll be working out of it.
Robert says he's going to meet Tool tomorrow.
Awesome.
What's some good questions I can ask them?
How can Tool be so cool? You know, anytime I see any of the guys, if I see Danny Carey interviewed, he's such a nice guy. How can they be so dark? How can he be so dark, their music, and he can be such a nice guy?
Well, what do you think?
That sounds good. We're all good. Everybody good? Woo! Follow me on Instagram, by the way. I'm putting up a lot of new stuff every day. I have new posts. Rick Beato 1 at Instagram. I expect to see all of you signed up right now. So get over there and hit it. Thanks for watching. I'll be on tonight on my second channel, Rick Beato Live, for those of you that don't follow already. And I'll let you know about the practice training sessions. We'll get those started here soon. All right? Boom. You guys are awesome. Thanks.